The other piece of interesting shit is they immediately like are doing their absolute best to be like, oh my God, Othororuru, okay?
Driver parked illegally for 2 minutes, and he got a message on his phone that he got a ticket for about $40 US because they saw it on the camera.
Yes, you broke the law. And China has a very efficient surveillance system, and it caught you. Saying that if you get caught doing something illegal in every country on planet Earth, you get fined.
Now, there are real questions what the CCP's goal is about citizen tracking and social scoring.
Social scoring is not a thing.
They say it's to make everybody feel safe. These cameras are watching every minute. They're everywhere.
The setup of this entire premise to me has always been insane because of this. Of course, an American hates that most policing is digitized in China, okay? It's relatively automated even. He prefers the much more efficient system, wife beating cops, shooting you in your own car over a parking. Certain levels of policing will always be necessary in every single city. The only thing we can do as progressive societies, as proletarian societies, is limiting the potential unnecessary exercise of violence by law enforcement is as minimized as possible. How do we do that? Well, honestly, by taking as much power away from very, very faulty systems of enacting justice, which are reactionary police officers, especially for crimes that do not involve a violent offense. Humans should probably not be used whatsoever. They should be caught by traffic cameras. They should be caught by cameras, by drones, or even like automated systems. The only time when humans should be sent is when humans can potentially de-escalate, hopefully because it is too complex for a fine to manage. Everything else, we will be limiting violent offenses by police officers, making sure that police officers are used as least as possible. Let's just simply compare deaths by police officer in the People's Republic of China and in the United States of America, which have these two very contrasting. Listen, there's a shit ton of cops in China, absolutely fucking everywhere. I've been there. There are, but they don't carry a firearm, and they usually manage traffic, foot traffic, and vehicle traffic, because this is a country with an absurdly large population and without people whose entire job is making sure the traffic keeps running. You're just going to have stampedes or you're going to have overcrowding 24/7. It is exceptionally efficient in the way it manages it. I can say, as having personally, can get behind this. Not just because I like jaywalking. We all love jaywalking because we don't live in countries with central planning. We jaywalk because our cities are not walker friendly. You would not jaywalk if your country, your state, your local municipality sees that, oh, a lot of people need to cross here. Let's make a pedestrian crossing here, a bike. Yes, my TLDR is an efficient perspective towards law enforcement is one which should attempt to minimize criminality and minimize potential use of force by the law enforcement body. How do you do that? You basically use cops the least you can. And the cops that you do use, you can call them whatever. You can call them the people's militia, okay, whatever. That you do use have to be some of the most trained people in the fucking country. But of course, especially in capitalist states, that is not the purpose of a police force. The main purpose of the police force is to keep the interests of the bourgeois class and keep the complaining, filthy masses down, include shooting them in their car when they made a parking violation, shooting them in their neighborhoods as, quote unquote, certain ethnicities kept in, quote unquote, their place.
Watching us here in China, we hope you continue to watch. Special report from Beijing.
And after that, I saw him unironically, like, just trying to provoke some sort of reaction so that they can say, herder, look at the evil Othororuru police officers in the Othororuru country of China. Walking in actual real traffic. This is not an attempt to like provoke a reaction so that they can just paint them as look at how they immediately crank down on international reporters in this hella fake country. They would not do that in American traffic. No. They would not report on getting a parking ticket in the States. Don't you understand, chat? When something happens in socialism and it's bad, it means it's socialism's fault. And if something bad happens in capitalism, then it's just a naturally occurring problem. American traffic tickets are very good because breaking the law is very bad. But Chinese traffic tickets are communist traffic tickets. They are de facto authoritarian. They're stepping on snake. Anyways, let's watch this shit. This should be fun.
The two leaders face to face in this hour, perhaps hear a little bit from them later in the hour. But tell us about what has happened thus far since you've been on the ground.
Well, so far, all we've seen is this very brief vision of President Trump getting off the plane. There was some pomp and circumstance. It was a red carpet, exactly what you would imagine President Trump would want arriving in China. He was greeted by the vice president of China, which shows how important this trip is, as well as a delegation.
By the way, when the leader of DPRK went, Xi Jinping greeted him personally.
On the ground, there were students with flags.
He didn't even meet him getting off the plane. A week earlier, he met Little Rocket Man with open arms. He even brought his wife, yeah.
Flags with the Chinese and American flag. And then this is the first time we're going to see the two leaders together. And this is the first time they're going to see each other face to face.
They did bring out like a lot of flags, a lot of soldiers, a little bit more than they usually bring out. It is an important kind of like symbolic meeting and stuff.
And this is really where you're going to see that big celebration, and one that President Trump remembers fondly. This is something that we saw back in 2017, a difference, of course, being that Melania Trump was by his side. But he's going to get out of the car and walk face to face with President Xi. They're going to go down this red carpet. And of course, you can see there the American flags flying.
We're going to listen in right now as we see them on that red carpet, meeting face to face and shaking hands. Let's listen and watch.
Hello, President Trump. We have prepared a special meal for today. Chinese McDonald's. They fed me Chinese McDonald's. We need to catch up to the Chinese people. How can McDonald's be better in China? It is American. Why is it better in China? It has to be that special type of salt that the Asians put in their food. What was it called? MLB, MST, MSNBC. I don't remember.
Also, what to do with the future of Taiwan, of course. Taiwan, major implications for both countries, has not yet approved.
He introduced me to the whole team. They shake my hands, very strong handshake, especially for a Chinese man, okay? That is a stereotype. They have very strong handshakes. It's from all the cigarette smoking. They always use their hands, smoking cigarettes. Why did everything smell like cigarettes? Imagine he's like, why does it smell like cigarettes everywhere? They enter the great people's hall and she chain smoking. He's like, yo, they have MSG, we have MSNBC. That is why we're failing. More MSG, less MSNBC. That is what I have always been saying.
So, Kristen, as we're watching these images of President Trump walking down this rope line of what it looks like.
Yeah, she got pissed off because the other lady told her, like, stop talking. We're listening in. She's like, no, fuck that. I'm about to talk. This is awkward.
And these dignitaries. One thing I am noticing, and I wonder if you have some insights into this, is that it does not appear to be any, maybe, or many Western press in close proximity to the.
Yeah, I was going to say, because go fuck yourself. That's why. You're in China now, motherfucker. We are the ones that get the front shots. Like, this is a security risk. I doubt that they let fucking CCTV in to record in Trump's face when somebody's coming to the White House, but no.
Is that your understanding of what's happening in this moment?
There is a small presence that is in that Great Hall. The press pool that traveled with the White House was given an option, or at least some of us were given an option to go there. There are increased rules, obviously, in China when it comes to the press.
Oh my God, the Hexeth. Let's see who mocks who.
And for a lot of us, it was not going to be possible for us to actually broadcast from.
Oh, Hexeth was very serious. He was like, I will not be hypocritical like other members of this administration. I dislike you greatly. I'm the war guy.
From that location in real time, which is why there aren't a lot of networks there. Remember, the U.S. press pool has been credentialed
peasant is standing there like, man, this place not so shabby.
By the White House and by China, essentially told by the White House that these are the people traveling with the president. So you'll see some of them on the ground there. It is a handful of people, but it is a small footprint.
Wait, they got the absolute unit back here. The guy that tweets for Trump. Oh my God. They're like, look, President Xi, we got an Asian on the team. Okay. Do you have a white guy on your team? No, you don't. We have an Asian guy, and they tell us that we're racist. We're not. You're racist. Why do you not have white people on your team? We got one Asian guy. We even got a couple of Jews. Okay. Where are your Jews? Xi Jinping confirmed anti-Semitic. No Jewish people on his team. Are you even circumcised, Xi?
That we have here among Western journalists that are on the ground. I will say, one of the interesting things I'm seeing here, too, is the body language between the two men. President Trump kind of grasping President Xi's hand when they were shaking hands, showing a lot of familiarity. I mean, President Trump is one who really kind of dotes on this relationship. He's often praising how close they are, how they get along, and you can see him really living that in real time with President Xi, kind of showing that closeness. And, he is not somebody who really shows a lot of affection, and he was sitting there patting his hand. That was an interesting moment. You can see here now President Xi is shaking hands with the delegation that traveled with President Trump, including some of his top aides, his son, Eric Trump, Lara Trump, all of them waiting there to meet the Chinese president.
He can't afford to lose in Iran, but the level of escalation is going to have to be pretty significant, and it won't be bombing these missile sites. He's going to have to take aim.
Oh my God. Look how pretty they are. They are not fat like our Americans. I keep telling them I wanted a military parade, but all our soldiers are very fat. That's why Hexeth is destroying DEI in the military. Look at it here. They're all Chinese. No diversity, only Chinese. That's because they don't have DEI. They even discriminate them by height. We can't do that in the States. They're going to tell us, no, you got to put the manlet next to the Chad. In China, they're all Chads in China. They call China woke. It's not woke. Look at them. No white people, no black people, no Jews. All just Chinese men, equal height.
The oil and gas sites in Iran, but if he does that, that's going to cause a lot of retaliation and lead to higher inflation in the United States. So President Trump is boxed in a lot of ways. He's trying to find wiggle room. Maybe this visit can help that, but that's why the stakes are incredibly high. And as I said before, Americans, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, we should all be rooting for President Trump. We want President Trump to succeed. We don't want him to give away the shop. We don't want him to make unnecessary compromises on Taiwan.
Wow. The one thing Democrats, Republicans, and Independents should agree on is China should go fuck itself, and we should imperialize it and dictate everything there.
It's great. We're going to get purchases of American soybeans and planes, but in exchange, we have to very aggressively support American interests.
The kids like what.
Yeah, look at this. Can you hear this? Can you pure imperialist, bloodthirsty fervor?
We're just going to listen in for just a second here. This is a pretty extraordinary image of young children.
Yeah, I don't think it's sincere. I think these kids were put up to it.
You think?
Something tells me that they were strongly encouraged.
This was all organic. I thought everyone just happened to be here at the same time.
We'll listen in for just a moment and watch this moment.
Yeah, just like the soldiers and just like everyone else during a state visit, create aesthetic symbols that are supposed to tell you that you are welcome. Something's telling me that all of this on this ceremony is scripted because it is a ceremony. Something tells me that the Turkey you are going to pardon did not consent to this. Yes, you're doing ceremonies. It's scripted. But you see, they're doing ceremonies Asianly and communistically, right? And authoritarianly. When we do ceremonies, we do them in a civilized, natural, capitalist, organic, non-authoritarian way. I hate it when somebody does the same thing I do, but Asianly.
The symbolism would suggest that they are eager to make some kind of deal. And as Jason mentioned, they're not in a great position either. I know they have vastly more oil reserves, but look, their net import of oil is down 20%. This is not an economy that is in a strong position. They've been facing a real estate crisis for 5 years. They need to export all of
Literally, just speaking from the top of her head. None of this is true, by the way. They do not. They have become a consumption economy. They do not need to export as much as they needed to export 10 years ago. They do not have a potential labor pool problem because the generational switch is change and the demographic switch that is going to come as a consequence of the one-child policy will be upkept by automation. The current max employment in China is due to it being a country on a socialist path, ensuring borderline total employability of absolutely everyone. It will continue to do so by eliminating jobs in the future that can be automated, not as a way to rid people of job positions, but as a way to adapt to a decline in population from generation to generation. These people think that, being a Chinese factory worker is listening to the Chinese anthem and just pulling a lever 24/7. That's the only thing that they need to do. Well, even if that was the case, the gaps in jobs will nonetheless get automated. So all of this is complete bullshit. All of this is absolutely complete.
these goods domestically. Demand is not what it was. And
That's not true. That's actually just a lie. That is actually a lie. The when it comes to the real estate crisis, the PRC looks at real estate completely differently than how America or most capitalist states look at real estate. The Americans look at, for example, apartment blocks remaining empty, and they say, "Oh my God, that's going to crash the economy." No, it's not. It's going to crash real estate companies that have market caps made by the socialist state that might go bankrupt because they built bad shit. The state isn't going to bail them out. Sure, skeletons of buildings may remain empty forever, but this is not a capitalist economy. It's not a purely capitalist economy. It's not selling because there's jack shit. These companies go under. Okay, I don't give a shit. Why did you build buildings there where there was no necessity? The entirety of the economic system is not directly tied into the real estate market and loan systems and private banks the way it is in the United States. So no, the real estate issue is not really an issue. It's an issue if you consider China a purely free market economy, which it is not. All of this is just, sorry that I'm going on a riff like this, but this is just lying. This is actually just fucking lying. Some of you are confused why they're doing this. This is what has always been done between states during a state visit. U.S. still has something on China. It is the world's most powerful military to this. And they're trying to find a relatively healthy solution when it comes to Taiwan. That is the main reason why they are meeting. Number one. And number two, you can get on Trump's good side by doing very, very basic shit sometimes. And a bunch of kids with little flags and badass looking military personnel marching in front of him and making him feel very, very special is going to play a pretty decent role in ensuring that he doesn't go completely fucking bananas on any action that the PRC might choose to take in the coming years during his administration. Same thing that every state does. You glaze up the foreign dignitary, hoping that adjusts the conditions accordingly. There was an issue with real estate with a company effectively doing fraud, and China took care of that by adding new rules to ensure that the real estate developers follow the same rules as banks when it comes to holding on to capital. Evergrande crashed in reaction to that, but crashing that company was on purpose to ensure the prosperity of the entire economy. Beautifully put. Absolutely, absolutely. There is an expectation in Western economies for China to potentially have to bail out hundreds. Let's even imagine hundreds of evergreen. China will simply not bail them out, and that will not impact the economy. It is as simple as that. It is as simple as the main argument towards bailing out. That isn't just one where you're protecting your fellow bourgeoisie. Is too much of the economy is invested in these enterprises. So if this enterprise goes under, it's literally going to be pretty bad for GDP. It's going to be pretty bad for the loan infrastructure as well that we've developed in the country. It's going to do very particular things to inflation. In China, you have not completely integrated the entirety of your economy into these particular private enterprises. The economy is not standing on a tower of commodity production, real estate, military infrastructure, and oil. So when one of those is pulled out, it doesn't make the whole fucking thing crash. It is centrally planned. They can make a decision like, hey, you will be bankrupted and we will stabilize this particular issue. Something that will be seen as an infringement on human rights of private enterprise or whatever the fuck over in the United States. The market here is used as a tool for financial mobilization, for the movement of labor and goods. It is used as a tool. It is not followed. That's the main difference. Let's continue.
So as much as we want this war to end, look, 50% of their oil comes from the Middle East. So I think, frankly, in this moment, there might be more to be aligned on. Of course, the tech piece of this is huge. Trump brought a huge coalition of business and tech leaders, and China is desperately trying to get our AI chips. They need that capacity to continue to grow their own economy.
They really need our AI chips, but I brought a bunch of CEOs to grovel in front of the Communist Party of China, so they can potentially enter what is going to be the most important and largest consumption market on the planet. We are going to Beijing for them to beg us for something. It's fucking legendary.
In an AI race head to head with them, and they recognize they need NVIDIA, they need some of these microprocessors, and hopefully that's a huge point of leverage that Trump stands firm on, because there's been a ton of IP theft. We need to make sure that our companies are protected in that regard.
Anna, the Washington Post had a pretty big report today based on some intelligence sources that say that there's a U.S. analysis that details that China is exploiting the war in Iran to maximize its advantage over the United States.
Yeah, why did you start a war then? Of course it's going to exploit it. The problematic party in the Iran war are the guys that started the Iran war. China is being exceptionally problematic about how it is treating this war we started. Problematic. A fucking bitch used the word problematic. About a party that is not bombing fucking school kids.
Military, economic, diplomatic, and other fields. And that actually includes their efforts to kind of stretch their soft power, their hard power and their soft power.
An enormous amount of leverage in here. One of the things that we're not talking about is the fact that President Trump needs a favor from President Xi. That favor is to reach out to Iran, this close ally, and essentially ask them or pressure them to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and even come to a peace deal. The big question now is, what does he want in exchange for that? What does he want in exchange for that when it comes to Taiwan? What does he want in exchange for that when it comes to business deals? That is a big ask. And what is he going to use, President Xi, as leverage to get what he needs out of this when President Trump comes to him?
应当做伙伴，而不是对手。
Incredible framing as always.
相互成就，共同繁荣，走出一条新时代大国正确
Find the
相
right
处
way for
之
major
道。
countries to get along well with each other in the new era.
我期待着同总统先生
Mr.
就事
President, I
关
look
两国和
forward to our
世界的
discussions on major
重大问
issues
题交换意
important to
见，
our two countries and the world,
共同为中美
and
关系
working
这艘
together
大
with you
船领好航，
to set the course for
掌好舵，
and steer the giant ship of
让
China-U.S. relations,
2026年
so as to make 2026
成为中美关系继往开来的
a historic landmark
历史性
year that opens up a new
标志
chapter
性年份。
in China-U.S. relations.
我就先说
I
这
will
么
pause
多。
here and hand over to you,
请总统先生。
Mr. President. Thank you.
Well, President Xi, I want to thank you very
习主席。
much. First of all, that was an honor like few have ever seen before.
He gave me the best parade. Everybody else, when they went, it was a smaller parade. Mine was the best. They gave Obama 20 children. I had 50 children waving at me. Did you see the amount of cars?
Particularly impressed by those children. They were happy. They were beautiful.
Oh my God, he actually said it about the children. That's so fucking funny. Love the little children. They were fucking incredible. The poor Chinese, they don't understand that these people eat and fuck kids. Like they can't comprehend the potential problematic nature of having children near Trump. He especially loved the children.
Those children were amazing, and they represent
God, I love them. Back in the United States, they're giving me white kids. I don't only want white kids. I might be a pedophile, but I'm not a racist.
so much, and I know they represent so much to you. You and I have known each other now for a long time. In fact, the longest relationship of our two countries that any president has had. And that's, to me, an honor. We've had a fantastic relationship. We've gotten along. When there were difficulties, we worked it out. I would call you, and you would call me. And whenever we had a problem, people don't know, whenever we had a problem, we worked it out very quickly.
I got 2 phones. One for Xi, bro, and one for the host.
Such respect for China, the job you've done. You're a great leader. I say it to everybody. You're a great leader. Sometimes people don't like me saying it, but I say it anyway because it's true. I only say the truth. And I just want to say on behalf of all of the great delegation that we have the greatest businessmen, the biggest, and I guess the best in the world. We have amazing people, and they're all with me. Every single one of them. We asked the top 30 in the world. Every single one of them said yes.
Top CEOs sitting in the Hall of the People, where there's depictions everywhere of a revolution where people like them were thrown off buildings. It is very cinematic, I have to say.
Into the third in the company. I wanted only the top, and they're here today to pay respects to you and to China. And they look forward to trade and doing business, and it's going to be totally reciprocal on our behalf. So I
love how we're pushing the narrative that it is China that relies too much on exports. And then we're going to this country that's definitely not a consumer economy anymore. Consumer economy is a place that can sustain its own domestic production by selling it to its own population. America has used to be the world's greatest consumer economy because when you make a product and you manage to sell it in the United States of America, that's how you make the big money, okay? They are the nom 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 nation. Now China is slowly not only being the sell, but also nom nation as well. And China is working towards that goal with great fervor because that's what allows them for maximum self-sustainability. But you're going to ask, okay, where does the relatively cheaper labor that is no longer available domestically going to come from? 2 places: greater levels of automation. Okay, so when you have the generational swap and when the population of China declines pretty sharply, you're gonna make up for those with automation, but you're also gonna make up for those in developing markets abroad that are not consumer markets yet, that China has already built up very good relationships with, and that is where the Belt and Road Initiative is going to play the main role, especially in Africa. Okay. They are going to do what basically outsourcing to China did for China. They're going to be outsourcing mostly in Africa, but not only, which is then going to allow those domestic African economies to, if they utilize it the way the Chinese did, to eventually become a consumer society as well, right? Not just an exporter society, not just an exporter country. The bet in the far long term is, okay, then most of Africa also develops and becomes consumer societies. Where the fuck do we get the labor? That's where you either go into the pure, capitalist barbarity of fuck labor. Who the fuck gives a shit? Or a civilizational leap of proletarian automation, of actually creating more efficient, centrally planned, socialized economy, which automation plays a very large role. Because there's the second there's no more place to outsource to, okay? The second there's no more poorer place than you to outsource to, everything fucking collapses. So we will have to an extent, either automate or basically do eco-fascism and go and proactively ensure that certain places remain underdeveloped so that they can be a cheap labor pool. Okay, this is the PRC has been working on this pipeline for a very long time, and their goal, which we will see if it's going to be hypocritical or not, of turning eventually to socialism, is back to fully centrally planned socialism, is not only something that makes sense from an ideological perspective, but it also makes sense from the perspective of the party keeping power. Why? Because when we reach the 2050s and the 2060s, without switching to a centrally planned, heavily automated economy, and we just run on automation that's held in the hand of large capital and the market, you will reach a point of lack of efficient growth and development, and the masses will notice, and the life will start getting shittier and shittier and shittier. If there is a point that is almost textbook Marxian that potentially China will be able to grasp, I'm not going to say that they will grasp it, potentially will be able to grasp, it might actually have in front of it. Let's see if they do. China needs imports. You can't run a surplus forever. Everybody needs imports, and everybody to an extent needs exports. TLDR, why am I optimistic about the Chinese socialist path? Because in the long term, returning to central planning is unironically going to be more efficient, even for quote unquote greedy, power hungry purposes. So even the worst type of actor coming into, which I doubt would happen, but let's imagine, even the worst type of actor coming into a position of power in Chinese leadership will want to move towards a more socialized way of managing the economy, because that's how they will make sure that prosperity goes on for longer and that they're not literally kicked out of government. It's going to be in their interest to do it. The only way this can be, of course, destroyed is if it is co-opted by large capital. If large capital manages to grow so much that it can compete with the power of the party, which is very difficult to do in China for obvious reasons.
Much forward to our discussion. It's a big discussion. There are those that say this is maybe the biggest summit ever. They can never remember anything like it. I can say in the United States, people aren't talking about anything else. But it's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to be your friend. And the relationship between
We are literally friends.
China and the USA is going to be better than ever before. Thank you very much.
I mean, he said peace in the he said he ensured peace in the Middle East before he invaded Iran. So you never fucking know.